radio show with your host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Fission radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear.
Good morning, UCY.TV radio listeners. This is Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission radio show. Thank you for joining us on Call-In Friday. Today is May 27th, 2016. I can't believe we're almost halfway through the year. What a year it's been. It's almost like La La Land. I hope that people will call in today. I have been sort of promoting the Call-In Friday. I think it's a great idea to have people call in, and even the people that disagree with me, I think we always find something really great to come out of it. And it gives me food for thought, although I still don't believe in violent revolution. I'm the Gandhi type. I think we need to create a peaceful protest, like a No Work Monday. But however, I don't know if many of you know this, and I have to admit, I have not looked into the legislation since it was passed several years ago. There was a piece of legislation called the Homegrown Terrorist Act that my former Senator Jane Harman created. And it is kind of a shock. To be honest, inside of it, it says that it is illegal for you to organize a protest that affects American businesses. You can be considered a terrorist. So that's an interesting little bit, don't you think? So if we really did create a No Work Monday where, say, we stopped the bus system or we harmed Bechtel, even though they're pouring and dumping known pollution into the desert out near on the Hanford Reservation. And mind you, they are dumping all the uranium tailings, almost all of them. Almost all of the uranium tailings are on Native American lands. And it is really a serious outrage what's going on. The genocide, we know that it takes 8 to 10 generations for the worst to show up. Nobody's keeping track. That's the story of St. Louis, isn't it, folks? You know, this morning or last night, I wrote a pretty heartfelt letter to the people of St. Louis because I definitely want to help these people. I mean, to me, and I have said this since the beginning, we are St. Louis. They are no different from us. If we are Americans, we are St. Louis. And maybe what I should do on this call on Friday, it's 8:04, is I'll read you the post. Because this is the post that I wrote. I pasted it, and frankly, when I wrote it, I copied it and posted it to my page because I had felt such a distance from the people running the Facebook pages that I wasn't sure either one of them, Coldwater Creeks, Humans of Westlake, or the Westlake landfill, I wasn't sure any of them would post this because it was very personal and very direct. So, as I usually am. So let me read to you this post that I posted on my Facebook page. It says, I am the host of a radio show, The Age of Fission, for which I receive no compensation. I have been highlighting the grave situation in St. Louis since I found out last November that our government is dragging its feet. Well, here's a caller. Hold on just a second. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning to the Age of Fission radio show. Who am I speaking with?
Well, hello, Lonnie. This is Carol.
Hey, Carol. So
What's up?
I was just about to read this letter that I wrote. Do you want me here? Do you want to stay on the line while I read this letter? I was about to read the letter that I posted to Facebook. I mean, I literally had just decided, you know what? I am going to read this. I'd love to speak to you about it because I know that you are actively engaged in covering this on your YouTube channel, which is Weeping Willow too. Carol's a friend of mine, you guys. I recognized her voice immediately. I didn't recognize her number, however. So let me read this to you. It says, I'm the host of a radio show, The Age of Fission, for which I received no compensation. I have been highlighting the grave situation in St. Louis since I found out last November that our government is dragging its feet in correcting the situation. Let me grab a little sip of water. My initial thought was to interview the citizens and activists living there to force this out on the airwaves. Yes, the radio show is on an internet radio station, www.ucy.tv/AOF. So it is not big and famous. Still, it is on the air and lots of people do listen, especially the government. The people of St. Louis are understandably wary of outsiders, and it has become quite a challenge to find people who want to interview with me regularly. I have been having difficulty getting anyone to interview with me. In fact, I have gotten very few responses when I send PMs to people. While I do understand, it makes me feel a bit like an ambulance chaser. I am not going to stop reporting on St. Louis every week, whether we have anyone to interview or not. I understand citizens are weary, and I understand you are being socially pressured to believe that radiation is just not that harmful. The problem with ignoring the negative effects of radiation is that it takes 3 to 4 generations for the harm to show up. Instead of not reporting on St. Louis on Mondays because there is no one who is willing to come on the air, I am going to diversify my reporting. I will be reading newspaper articles and interview other people who are not from St. Louis, like Carol, who have been reporting and doing research on the nuclear contamination in St. Louis and the Manhattan Project, which is the root cause of this situation. That's Carol. That's what I wanted to talk to Carol about. So thank you, Carol, for calling. So let me continue.
You're welcome.
I still believe that interviewing citizens from St. Louis, the people who are being harmed in every way, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, is the best way to highlight the plight of St. Louis. I want to be a positive addition and help the people of St. Louis and get remediation and equitable repayment they deserve. I have nothing to gain financially from my efforts on behalf of St. Louis. Let me take another glass of water, you guys. If you can't
Great
tell,
letter.
if you can't
Great
tell,
letter.
this makes me so emotional because okay, let me continue. What I am gaining is a deep love for America and our spirit. We do love each other, and we are all one people. I believe we are all responsible to help the people of St. Louis. If most Americans knew what was going on, they would be clamoring for an immediate remedy of this situation. I thought I would write you a little bit about myself since I am constantly asking all of you to disclose about yourselves so that you are not you who are thinking of talking to me will know a little bit more about me and see that I am not out to take advantage of you, not to use your plight for gain. Genuinely, my only interest is in helping St. Louis and its communities get what they deserve. A clean environment to live in and honest, swift help from the government who chose to ignore this for far too long. I'm a single woman, 60, I know, I can't believe it either, who reared 2 children on my own in LA and moved to Oregon in 2004. My girls are now 33 and 35 with 3 grandchildren, 4, 6, and 12. My oldest daughter, husband, and grandchildren live in Salem, Oregon. My youngest is single and living in Portland. I am an enrolled agent. I have owned my own tax resolution business for just over 16 years that is successful. www.wefixtaxproblems.com. Although I keep the site dormant because I do not advertise or have my website up because I have enough word of mouth business to keep everyone happy. I am a college transfer student who is about to enter the University of Oregon as a junior. My focus of study is Spanish and law. Originally, I wanted to get a master's degree in Spanish so I could change careers and work as a translator. I already speak Spanish. I found out that in 2012, Fukushima was not taken care of like we had all been told, and have since relentlessly pursued scientific studies and experts to find out exactly what was going on, only to discover the worst can of worms opened by the negligent nuclear industry. That industry has caused massive harm that is ongoing and is also being ignored and underreported. Then I heard on Nuclear Hot Seat that there are only 6 law firms in the entire U.S. that challenge the nuclear industry. The next day, I went to school and changed my major. I am now going to work on a law degree to overturn the Price-Anderson Act, which is the law that indemnifies every single person or a corporation who knowingly or unknowingly causes harm with nuclear pollution, even if it's outright negligence. All of this can tell you that I am seriously overly busy. I work hard every single day, including weekends, to make ends meet, to be a good parent and grandparent, to present an outstanding radio show that reports on the issues caused by the nuclear industry, and complete my college education. Oh, how I wish I had accepted the financial burden years ago. It would have been a whole lot cheaper then. Well, let me get a sip of coffee. I hope this brief synopsis will encourage some folks to PM me and be willing to be on the radio show. Personally, I think regular interviews from the citizens of St. Louis on the show provides our listeners with context and relationship, thereby engaging them at a deeper level. If anyone is interested in being on just once, still welcome. Please contact me either here via PM or email nutsforart@gmail.com or call on my cell 541-337-4664. And yes, I know I just gave out my number on the air, but I don't care. If you get my voicemail, leave me your name and number and a good time to call you back. I think the pressure is mounting on St. Louis. I believe it is important not to let the foot off the gas pedal. Please do join me at least every once in a while. Lonnie Clark. And I was stunned that that letter got reported, that was pasted. To be honest, I was pleasantly surprised. And you know what happened this morning? This morning, actually, a few people actually called me and have contacted me and now saying, you know what, thank you for what you're doing. And most people, what it is, Carol, we were talking about this earlier when you called me. Carol called me this morning all freaked out about something she found out. So I was like, the people out there really honestly, they don't think their story matters. That's the issue. They think they're too far away. They don't understand how harmful radiation is. Most people have, just like me, 3 years ago, I had no idea. I mean, I was born in Los Angeles around the Santa Susana time. So what does that say?
Well, I have no one to reach out to, so, they feel alone.
Yeah, well, they are trying to reach. This is the hard part, Carol. They've been, you and I, we jump up and down and tell everybody, call your elected officials. Da, 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 da. These people, the people of St. Louis have organized. They delivered 12,000, 13,000, 20,000 signatures to the governor, to their elected officials, and one man, Mr. Frank Pallone, and everybody should be calling him. They just closed the session on the water bill for 2017. You know what that means? Even if they pass this bill, this is the trick these rats do in government. They know they're going to pass it. They're just not going to put it in this year. They'll put it in next. Because what's one more year? The reality is, even if you fund it today, the people that are going to have trouble are going to have trouble, and there's no stopping the trouble it's going to cause, so why pay for it? You get the thinking.
Yeah.
Honestly, this is where I get to the cussing words, man.
I'm not familiar with the water bill. I haven't been into that.
I
because
watch
of all the
C-SPAN
other-
like I'm such a weird nerd. I sit here and do my tax returns or do my homework, and I'll listen to C-SPAN because I think it's important for us to pay attention to what these rats are saying.
Right,
This is how
right.
close-
And
this
it is.
why
It is.
You want to know what, though, Carol? This is my point about that voting. Yeah, it's pointless to just go and vote, but it's not pointless to go and vote and pay attention and call them and say, what the heck are you talking about? You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, poke them. Like, listen to what these guys, before that gets into law. You know that story about the organic farm bill, right? The bill a few years ago, and this happened for real in 2000, I think it was 6. Because it was way before Obama. It was when Bush was in power. When I was first started, what? Like when all that happened, when Bush stole the election, then 9/11 happened, I'm like, wait a minute, man, we are being railroaded. And then the Patriot Act got rolled in. That's when I started jumping up and down, right? So I started watching C-SPAN like a frickin' hawk because those people, they're sneaking things into the bill. Like Jane Harman, I started the show out talking about Jane Harman. During that period of time, you know, she wrote the Homegrown Terrorist Act that says if you organize a No Work Monday or any kind of protest that stops the machine, you know, American companies, you can be considered a terrorist because that harms the GDP of the United States. So you couldn't protest and say, okay, we're not going to. So then you have to get really clever because you have to slow work down. That's what they do in labor laws. It's almost like they're treating us like we are their slaves. They're treating us like we're their little workers and they get to tell us what to do. It's outrageous.
Right.
But
We're
it's
the chattel
only
being
that way.
herded.
You know why it's only that way, though, Carol? Because nobody gets engaged. Nobody watches them. Let me share with you this story that did happen.
That's why this country's in the shape it's in, because everybody's being placid as all hell.
Yeah. You know what happened during those days? This is weird. I had the time in those days because I wasn't going to school where I could just read all the legislation, right? So in 2006, I was reading like the, something like the agriculture bill. It wasn't an agriculture bill. It was, it had nothing. It had to do with the farming and the farm bill, I think it was. And I was reading through it, and there was a clause. It was like the whole thing was like 1,100 pages. So it took me a good while to like read it. I think it took me 2 weeks to read the whole thing and read through it. And I was coming across it when I was looking at it, and I was just poking through, and I hadn't even gotten to that section. I was like at page 300, and I'm like, holy crap, how long is this thing going to take me? And I came along this section about 600. Page 6 something, 34 or something like that. It said it was a piece of legislation stuck in there by a Monsanto lobbyist that said, if you grow organic seeds in your own backyard, it's illegal because Monsanto has a right to their GMO products if they're growing in your neighborhood.
Oh, my God.
I am not kidding you. I called up Jane Harman's office. I said, have you seen, not Jane Harman, I called up Loretta Sanchez's office, who was I was living in Oregon, but she used to be a representative who was next to my district. So I said, well, man, I know you. There is no way you know about this. And the girl on the phone said, oh, well, you know, thank you for letting us know. Well, no, we had no idea. We'll look into it, blah, blah, blah. So I called back 3 weeks later to find out what happened to that legislation before it got voted on. What happened to that section? Turns out there was about 20. This is how few people it takes. There was about 20 other people who had seen it and had called their office and objected. And that was enough for the committee to decide to take it out. 20 people.
Yeah, people don't understand that if just 7 called
Carol, we're losing your sound. You're far away.
Every day.
Carol, you're
far
away.
They would end up considering that an emergency. You know?
Hey, Carol. Maybe.
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry. Never mind.
I said if just 7 people called their representative every day, they would consider that an emergency.
I know. It's true. They actually Pete DeFazio's office basically told me I was a repeat offender. You know what I mean? He actually, because I called him up, I said, well, how many phone calls do you get? And his office said, well, they have over 300,000. She said, if we get 3,000 calls a year, that's a lot. And most of those 3,000 calls are the same people calling, a small handful of people. So if you think about how often you call your representative and ask them, you could probably extrapolate from that a little bit.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, I know I spent the day yesterday calling, about 3 hours calling all the senators that are members of Congress dealing with Indian Point up there in New York, New York.
Yes.
People don't understand how dangerous that plant up there is because there's 277 bolts that have either dissolved and disintegrated, they've cracked, and or they are missing, but they're still inside the reactor. It's just one of those 2-inch stainless steel bolts was to wedge itself between the jet stream of the water that cools the reactors, the hot radioactive reactors. It can blow up. And I just did a story about that a couple of days ago, but because no one seems to be doing anything, but Cuomo, the governor up there, is and has been advocating to get it shut down. Now, they are illegally operating to begin with because their licenses for Reactor 2 and Reactor 3 had expired respectively in 2013 and 2015. But they're still operating. Now, due to a environmentalist group, Friends of the Earth, who was instrumental in stopping it or getting it shut down, is how I understand it, the NRC and or the plant owners is trying to get it fired back up when it's not even been thoroughly investigated or checked out because it's all about the money. They want the revenue on everybody fixing to fire up their air conditioning when this daggone plant.
Carol, I just said to you earlier, the reason it's all about the money is their logic is like, well, okay, even if we shut it down now, there's no way we're going to stop all these people from getting sick, so why should we spend the money? Because we've already done the damage. They're already super screwed. The only point...
But it's not about, but it's not about them getting sick. They're going to frickin' die.
Yes, I know. They don't care. People. Do you think the nuclear industry gives a rat's ass about a single human life or any life on this planet? No. They view themselves as a nuclear priesthood. Alvin Weinberg said it so himself. They call themselves the nuclear priesthood. They think they are gods. They think that they're going to figure out a way to transcend themselves. And every one of these fuckers die from cancer. I mean, honestly, I'm sorry to cuss, but it really does make me really mad that they have no regard for human life. If they had, and in fact, every one of our elected officials ought to refuse. They ought to have the courage to stand up to these monsters. We have been betrayed. The core of our government is betraying us. That's why people are angry at our government. That's why people like Trump. That's why people like Bernie Sanders, because they're both telling both party members, I'm going to stand up to those fuckers that are attacking us from the inside. Only, my question is, how quick will it take either one of them to flip or be murdered? You know what I mean? Honestly, if Bernie Sanders tries to tell me to vote for Hillary Clinton, I am fucking never voting again. I mean, honestly, that would just...
I've already reached that point.
Like, honestly...
I'm not voting.
Well, I hope he doesn't. And actually, I'm counting on him winning, and I frankly am counting on him being murdered. Because I don't think he'll flip. Or maybe his kids will be murdered, or his wife would be murdered. I think they will do something to him to shock the fuck out of him, to make him do whatever they say, if he tries to stand up to them. These people are murderers. They have no regard for human life. Look what they did to the towers. Look to our own people. Why do you think they could do it to the towers? You think they don't know what they're doing to St. Louis? All the communities, you think they don't know what they're doing to the Native Americans, the uranium tailings? John Goffman unequivocally proved uranium tailings causes massive, for every 2 rems of radiation in the air for a population of 1 million people, they know you're going to get, 32,000 cancers and approximately 200,000 birth defects. For every, million or 2 million people, do the numbers, do the math. They know what they're talking, those documents have all been concreted. There's scientific proof in the back of every single one of Dr. John Goffman's books. Poison Power, Population Control to Nuclear Pollution was his last. I mean, it was a pretty. He wrote it in desperation. He said, "Look, if you continue on this path, this is what you're going to get." And guess what? It was their playbook. You should read the scientific studies at the back. Grab some of those links, and you know what? Some of them are considered, a large portion of them are considered top secret, and you can't look at them. They used to be open probably when he published them, but my guess would be is, like now, the United States government is zipping its lip because we are controlled by people who don't have any regard for human life. People need to watch the movie V for Vendetta, because that was a very prolific movie. That was exactly where we're at, folks. That movie, to me, I mean, I've been walking around looking about it thinking, wow, it is really... Have you seen that movie, V for Vendetta?
No, never even heard of it.
You must watch it. It is like, it's exactly how our...
What is it again? Let me write that down.
It's called V for Vendetta.
Oh, yes, I have seen that. I've seen that here a few weeks ago. Jeez, I forgot about it, yeah.
That's right. Well, look, we're at 826. I want to give an update to our listeners. You are listening to UCY.TV radio with the Age of Fission radio. It's Call-In Friday. Today, we did have a caller call in, and it is my friend Carol, Weeping Willow 2 from YouTube, who does her own reporting. And I'm actually glad that you're on the phone, because I haven't really, we did an interview about Hanford, but we haven't really talked about other things. I've been super busy. But do you want to share more information about Indian Point? Is there more to discuss about Indian Point?
Indian Point has 277 bolts that's gone missing and cracked and or dissolved.
Where can people find the links for the scientific minds that want to read that stuff? Where would people go to look for that kind of details?
Well, I don't know where all. I've got the link underneath of my story that I ran on it on Weeping Willow 2.
What date did you run it?
People need to contact their senators in their state and all of them that are on in Congress, members of Congress. I spent the day yesterday doing that too, calling all of them to give them a heads up, because I don't know that they're even aware of it. But then again, I think maybe they are.
They know.
My theory.
You're hilarious. You're hilarious. You think they don't know? Of course they know.
Oh no, I'm joking there. I'm being facetious. But I wanted to record all of my calls that I made to these entities, I should say, because I don't think they're people. I swear I don't. But anyway, I've called 15, 17 yesterday, and I probably have to pick up Monday because I don't have time today. I have other things to do. However, that plant can blow up at any time if they fire it back up. That's all there is to it. So, this is my theory. All right, I know for a fact that the government sent 14, oh gosh, I forget the number, if it was 14 million packets or 14, it had to have been more than any, maybe it was 14,000. I don't remember the number. I know it was 14. That they sent that ASAP to Virginia.
Wow.
Now, you have, I am of the mindset that New York is the Babylon. It does all the world trade, all the gold, silver, silks, everything's to New York. And, I think it's going to be a sacrifice, because you have 20 million people there.
Wow.
You have the Indian Point nuclear power plant, number 2 and 3 reactor.
I just found it. You did this video on the 24th of May.
Okay.
That's Weeping, WHEEPING, Willow 2.
You know, and they have, it sits 26 miles from New York, you know, and they're only going to have an hour and a half to evacuate if that place blows up. Now, you try to evacuate 20 million people within an hour and a half. It's not going to happen.
No.
And so, you know, it will be contaminated forevermore if that plant blows up, and I think that could be the part of the Agenda 21.
Well, this information that you're telling us actually came from Governor Cuomo's office, correct? I mean, it's not just somebody reporting. This was a statement that his office said. He reported these bolts missing. He said all these things. I mean, he said that it's below, like, they really, like, his concern is about the management of these people. Like, how we're letting incompetence run the plant if this is what's going on. They're not even attempting to remediate it. They're like completely incompetent.
Well, my report has more than Kumo in there. And I tried to contact Kumo's office. I did get him, but I didn't get to talk to him, of course. And that's somewhere in there. I don't know where. Just keep going, you know.
I bet you we could find some of this. I'm going to look on. The NRC website to see what they're reporting exactly. Because there's the place you can go on the NRC website.
Well, the NRC is all pro nukes.
I know, but you know what? It's interesting to see. They do actually say. I mean, they do talk about it, but they use code words because they use all these weird little acronyms. You know, like they call the fire at Westlake landfill. They're calling it a smoldering event.
Right. And it's been going for 5 years or 6 now that I'm aware of.
I read on Facebook yesterday a 6-year-old child died yesterday.
From where?
Right at the Westlake landfill.
Oh, jeez.
Yep. I started crying when I read it. I was like, what is it? You know what I have to say? I am just like spitting nails. Where are the men of St. Louis talking about their children? Like,
well, where are the men in this country? Why are they allowing this?
Maybe one of them will call in right now and talk to us about that. The number 718-717.
Well, I wish somebody out there would.
Let me give them the number, 718-717-8296, because this is a good question. Where are the men in St. Louis, the dads of St. Louis? Oh, they're busy working, like the moms aren't busy working? Everyone.
Right.
Only one woman that I know is a stay-at-home mom. All the others have jobs. So they're working and they're being moms. And so they're taking care of other things. The wives really do allow their husbands to sit on their ass. Although that's probably why I'm divorced.
Let's get to the symptoms of radiation poisoning, okay?
Please do.
You have nausea and vomiting, all right? You have diarrhea. You have headaches. You have fever. You have CNS function, which is cognitive impairment.
All of those things are diagnosed. But forget the leukemia, but all those first things, the fatigue, all those other things, think of how much money the pharmaceutical industry
sure.
I mean, they're diagnosing this, diagnosing that. You've got shaky leg syndrome. How about that one?
Yeah, nosebleed, hair falling out, you know.
Your nervous system's going out for some unknown reason just in your leg. You have no idea why, but you're drinking tritiated water.
Right. And sure, it's in the water table. If you think it's not, I mean, good golly, the report I did there for Hanford, considering 1 million gallons that had been secretly dumped into the frickin' Columbia River.
I know.
And that goes on out into the Pacific Ocean.
Carol,
you know, but all the cities, there were 36 or 38 cities that had been contaminated along that waterway.
Yes.
You know, when I called the health department there in Richland, Washington State, they were saying, oh, no, there's a bull. I went through all of my videos dealing with Hanford. I only thought I had 6 or 7. Turned out I had 35 or so. And they ended up, I called her back, the health department. And I called her back, and I started spewing the numbers, and I started spewing the dates, and I started spewing about Helen Caldecott talking about a CDC report that was done back in 1988. I did the thing on Arnie Gunderson ended up bringing up the figures and all this type of thing. They end up collecting babies. The Washington State University has cadavers. They have body parts, all this stuff, and fetuses that they have at the University of Washington, that they have gone all across this country in and around the people that have passed away or spontaneous abortions, and they've taken them all there from all over the country.
To study the effects of radiation.
Pardon me?
Is it to study the effects of radiation?
Yes. And, but then they want to propagandize and indoctrinate the public that there's no effects from radiation. That's BS.
Well, the issue is that it seems to me that, and in fact, John Goffman talked about this, they're eugenicists. Like, they really believe that it doesn't matter if a lot, unless you believe, he said this in like the introduction, unless you believe that like only a few people should really remain humans, we're looking towards, really ecocide, not even just genocide, ecocide. This will bleed into, that's the book where he explained, and he had the reference in the back of the book, why fish are so poisonous to eat. Because a fish needs potassium, swims through the water, its body magnetizes the potassium in the water, in the seawater, because there's not very much, by 1,000 times. So when it swims through water with cesium-137, 134, cesium, potassium, its little body thinks it's the same thing. It magnetizes the radiation by 1,000 times more. So yes, it is safer to drink a glass of seawater than it is to eat a fish. But what we have is Ken Buesler and Jay Cullen telling people, oh, there's no radiation in the water. Look, here's the water. It's perfectly fine to eat the fish. No.
Right.
It's not.
Well, I haven't eaten anything out of water since 2010 when BP Oil Company ended up blowing up their rig 255 Macondo well, Deep Well Horizon. But, I've interviewed Ken Buesler once or twice, and I caught him in a lie. And so Kevin, I don't know if you want me to say his last name or not on your show.
Oh, Kevin Blanch, yeah.
Yes, and Kevin Blanch ended up kept saying in one of his videos, they won't talk to him. And I asked him, what question are you wanting? And he said, they're not going to talk to you. I said, hey, I'm like a bulldog with a bone. I'm not going to let go until they talk to me. So he ends up telling me, if you can get them to talk to you, or Ken Buesler particularly, and ask him whether he stands by the first report that he did on the ocean off the coast of California. And I said, and that's it? He said, yep, because if he stands by the first one, that means the second one's a lie.
That's right.
And so I did. And I popped that question at the end of all of my questions that I had. And he said, oh, I thought you was going to talk about the recent report. I said, no. And he already knew it was being recorded. So he couldn't back out of it. And he ended up saying, yes, he stood by the first one.
Of course he does. Look, you know what? Kevin and I parted ways, but we're friends. I have no hostility towards him. You know what I mean? Like, it's actually all really good. I mean, he has his own radio show, in fact, on this station. And it's,
does he really? I didn't know that.
I know that. I know you don't.
I don't have time, with what I do to run around to.
You do a lot of your own reporting, but there's a lot of really, like the geoengineering. This show. I mean, honestly, I often promote this radio station because you know what makes it alternative is you hear. This is how pathetic our country it is. It's alternative because we hear real facts.
Right. Well, we hear the real story. Everybody's flocking to the alternative because the media has laid down. I mean, mainstream media, if ever they reported the truth, they've been tainted and compromised and bought out.
It's not. There is no media. It's infotainment. There's not. That's
You're
not
right.
journalism. It's not. It's a propaganda machine for the corporations. I mean, right now on the television, on every single quote, like MSNBC, CBS, they're all telling us. In fact, even on Fox, everybody's just assuming Monsanto Clinton is going to ascend to the throne and go up against Trump, which might have been.
Well, Trump's all for Hillary Clinton. I mean, he's just another puppet in the mix. It's you have the little puppets over the left and the puppets on the right, and everybody's doing their little dance between, on the TV. When they're all in bed together. It doesn't matter the name. They're all in bed together. But I've got a breaking story for you.
Okay.
I called the Dennis Buckley, the mayor of Beach Grove, Indiana, this morning, and asking why he allowed the military, 100 troops, to go into Beach Grove doing their little mock-up games, and scaring the hell out of the people. And he said, well, he supports the military. I said, well, hey, I do too. My dad was command sergeant major in the Army, and you've got Army there in your city rappelling from helicopters, scaring the crap out of people. Children waking up because they're flying over top of their houses.
People in the community didn't know.
They did not.
Nobody told them. The local news didn't say anything. Hey, we've got it.
No.
They've done that here, and we actually do hear it on the news. In fact, the news goes out and reports it, and it's kind of like a sort of interesting little event. We've had that happen, but we always have not people. Not dropping out of the sky, but we've had a couple of planes and things, and they tell us, well, they're doing exercises. You'll see planes, zoom,
Well, like you said earlier when we was talking before we got on the program, it's reminiscent of the Iron Curtain, And
reminiscent.
I told him,
they use their playbook, Carol.
Right. Well, I told him, I said, look, what happened to Posse Comitatus? I said, the military should not be coming out amongst the public. He said, but it was on private land. I said, I don't care. He said, don't you think that they had the right to go to private land? I said, no. Not when it's flying over the people. When it's flying over your city, no, I do not. And when he brought up, about he supports the military, I said, I do too. I support our vets.
That's kind of
but
weird.
But not when they come out amongst the people.
That's kind of weird that they were like doing exercises over the city. What? Because they needed live practice, so they thought they'd use their city? Was that the concept?
The American people, by doggy, they pay for the federal granted lands that they do their mock-up towns and all this stuff for them to do their warfare.
Towns. You're telling me that they have mock-up towns, that there was completely no reason. See, I don't really understand this whole military thing. In fact, I personally think we need to cut the military budget out and just stop with the warmongering. I think,
that brings me to another topic. I did a story concerning the military that they're going back to the old planes that are relics to get parts off of them to end up keeping them flying now. Now, you got to be kidding me. That was a bullshit story if I ever read one.
Well, you know
why? I mean, because they have new planes now, and you can't go back to the relics and get pieces and parts off of them.
Carol, do you comprehend why there was a story that came out this last week? The GAO discovered that our government is spending $90 billion searching for old computer parts because we don't have updated systems. That is not an accident. It's going to cost so much
it's all
more.
About the money. I mean, what was it back in Bush's day and Clinton's day? It's all about getting our military all hefted up and all this stuff, to be able to deal with any terrorism or anything like that. So now this is a propaganda indoctrination on them wanting more money off of the people. I'd say unless we and our soil is being attacked, you don't need to have all this.
Yeah, well, they're going to have it. I mean, try to stop them. That's the issue. I mean, we're, this, I would really, for me, this is where I think about, like, what we're doing with our military. We have the empire. We are the empire. We're the offender. Our country is the offender. I mean, when we were little kids, you and I, all we heard about was the red scare, the red scare, the red scare. And our government used that as a playbook. They bought Bill Clinton finalized the deal. He clinched the deal when he gave the media to the corporations. That's essentially what he did. He 86'd everybody out. Now we're squeezing our way back through the internet, but you know what? They want to clamp down on that too. So, I mean, the struggle is not just about freedom. It's about life on our planet right now. They are killing us with nuclear pollution, with John Goffman said it's not just nuclear, it's technology. It's a free-for-all. They have no regard for life. It's ecocide. They will kill everything on this planet unless we demand something else. And at the end of this book, he was so sweet and optimistic. He's like, I have faith that people are going to stand up and demand accountability and prevent them from harming the planet. Well, how sweet was he? And he got drummed out of the industry. I mean, that's the biggest. This is why Kevin Blanche and we got along, because we're like, fuck those people. You know what I mean? All these activists, like, I'm now interviewing people that are so soft-spoken, like, we heard Chuck Johnson, well, we had to make concessions. I'm like, really? I guess we do. Yes. We do have to move the ball down. And this is one of the things I'm learning with Donna Gilmore. The power is so complete, you have to use them at their own. You have to use their own documentation. You have to use their own regulations, hold them to accountability. You want to stop them, delay. Start objecting to instead of saying shut it down, find out what they're up for renewal for. Find out what's going on and ask them to keep delaying a decision, keep delaying a decision. That's what got it shut down, was they asked them to keep delaying decisions to the point where it was going to cost the company too much money to keep it open while the NRC had them suspended.
Well, I've got to say something here. I know just a little bit about law. If people would implement 5 U.S.C. 7311, that is where if your politician, and to include the president, usurps the Constitution of this country, they can be ousted from office. The second thing is that some states have what's called a recall.
You think anybody's going to do that? I mean, I don't mean to laugh right at your face, but it's hilarious. No one's even going to stand up for that. They don't even call their freaking elected officials. They don't vote. No. We have less than 18% of the people in this country that vote. 18%. On a big election, we might have a total of 34, 35%. We don't have, I mean, I think we had like 60% at Obama's election. We got a lot of people out for that one for 2 reasons. First black president, and people were scared shitless of Bush. I mean, honestly, there was no way. I mean, we could not, that whole Romney, all of that stuff, all the things, all the whole Republican agenda, to me, in my view. And then now, this is my objection to the Democrats. They've turned into Republicans. And they're fascists. Yeah. Like Jane Harman, a quote Democrat, wrote the Homegrown Terrorists Act. Nancy Pelosi, Democrat, co-wrote the Unpatriot Act. And why was that? They were the only 2 women who saw the torture tapes. They were the only 2 women who saw the torture tapes. So how did the only 2 women who saw the torture tapes have the quote honor of protecting our country? Like, that to me was treason. The Unpatriot Act is treason, in my view. The NDAA is treason. It goes against everything that's American. Gitmo is treason. Goes against everything that's American. Everything. And these cowards that are afraid to bring people we have people in Gitmo who have been cleared of doing anything. You know why they're not being allowed to go free? Because the United States government has tortured them so badly, they're afraid they're going to become terrorists. So we're torturing them to death instead of just like, who gives a fuck? Excuse my language, but okay, so you bring them back to wherever, and you just have somebody take them out over there. Just bink, goodbye, you don't exist, nobody cares. If you're that afraid of them, just go do it. But to spend our billions of dollars torturing somebody and holding them like this, I mean, the CIA is so out of control. It's just so outrageous. I don't know how people aren't speaking out. I honestly don't get it.
Because they're chicken. Because they're scared. They say this I think is the mindset from all the research I did. The consensus is that they think that they're being complacent and being quiet, and that they're going to be okay, that nothing's going to happen to them. Well, hey, this is a wake-up call, people. Get off your cadangas, your blessed assurance, and let your politicians know that you're watching them, that they will be held accountable, because if you don't do something, because they're killing you right now with chemtrails, with HAARP, with all this crap that they got, their little toys.
The fracking.
You know,
the nuclear.
And it's
GMO.
not going to stop.
The oil spills.
GMO, that's right. You know,
I mean,
the
just think about
vaccines,
it. The chemicals they're
you know,
putting into our food. We can't even go to the grocery store. 3/4 of the aisle, you can't even go down and buy real food.
yeah, exactly.
Like, really?
But you
That's
can
our
rest
principle?
assured they got the real stuff.
Yes.
They're not
indeed.
eating what we're eating.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So it is really important for us to get off our duffs and get educated and really speak out. I agree. I mean, you couldn't. But you know what? This is the other thing. It's on us. Like, this is on our watch, as Dana Durnford says. Like, that's why he can't stop. I mean, Dana Durnford got arrested in Canada for, telling some people, Ken Buesler and Jay Cullen. I think Jay Cullen's a Canadian citizen, so that's the guy who had him arrested, for telling him on a YouTube video, "I want to wring your neck." Or something stupid like that. He was so mad. He was like, "Arr!" He made some outrageous, angry statement. Like,
Well,
that is considered aggravated assault in Canada. Which is weird. That law just passed. Talk about fascism. The law in Canada just passed in May. Dana was arrested, recently. You know what I mean? Like, a few months afterwards. And it's a serious charge, but he's a handicapped person. He couldn't harm somebody if, he wanted to. He's weak. He is a medically handicapped person. And it's an outrage that the nuclear industry is so afraid of being outed, because Dana documented that there is no marine life up and down the British Columbian coast with his camera. He had an underwater camera. He has thousands and thousands and thousands of clips of dead marine life off the coast.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Well, I know who he is. I was given some information about him and another character on YouTube. I wouldn't follow him if my life depended on it.
Well, I do, and
I know who he is. I know what he represents, and he is not what people on YouTube think he is. And
well, I don't know. I disagree with you, because I don't. I personally, I have heard some of the rumors, but I personally don't believe in following the.
Well, this time the information I got was from another Canadian.
It doesn't matter. The nuclear industry is no. I'm going to defend Dana Durnford. I do not believe the accusations of any of the horrible things. The nuclear industry is after him, Carol. He has been studying uranium for 8 years prior to Fukushima. They know who he is. And I do not believe, guess what? They always like to make accusations against people that are vile.
Oh,
if you want to destroy your reputation, and they can create anything. I will defend Dana Durnford. He has fucking risked his life to help people be aware that fucking Fukushima is seriously real. And watching him, and I have followed him and watched him, and I've talked to him personally, interviewed him. You're talking to a person who is a child abuse survivor, right? So this is an issue that, for those of you who don't know what we're alluding to, there's things out on the internet that says Dana Durnford's a perv and a chimo. And you know what? I honestly don't. We don't have records. We don't know. It's all rumors, and I'm going to defend Dana Durnford. So we should just move on from that conversation.
Yeah.
But Dana's work is unquestionable. The work that he did going up and down 15,000 miles in the dinghy, bringing an underwater camera, documenting the death of the Canadian coast from Fukushima is undeniable. Thousands and thousands and thousands of minutes of footage of it. And
not just Fukushima, the shit that's coming out of Columbia River that's flowing into.
Yes.
You got plutonium.
Yes.
That's been.
The dead zone coming in, because the Columbia River, at the face of the Columbia River, it's one of the largest dead zones that there is.
Mm.
It really is. Around the planet, it's one of the biggest, most dead zones right at the mouth. Because right there is also the Trojan. They have the Trojan in Oregon right at the mouth of the Columbia River. They were going to build a nuclear power plant right there. And the people in Oregon got super busy and said, no, you're not. It's illegal to have nuclear in Oregon. We have little mini ones that aren't really reactors at the universities, but we do not have what we had up at Trojan. They closed it down, and you know what they do now? They store nuclear waste there. So we do have nuclear inside of Oregon. They had it there, and now because of that and because of the gross mismanagement of how they handle the waste, that with the Columbia Generating Station, with Hanford, do you know that at Hanford, when they originally built it, they had plutonium processing plants right next to the river?
And they had some uranium there, too.
Yes.
Yeah. But, they're bringing in nuclear waste. They're bringing back what Fukushima Daiichi, they're bringing their radioactive waste to SRS, which is Savannah River site down in South Carolina.
I know.
And I interviewed the head guy there here months back, talking about the tanks and everything. They're going to be storing it all in, and UK.
Carol, would you put a reference to that in the comments of this show when it comes back up on the podcast if I send it to you? Because I'd like people to hear it. That was a pretty interesting interview. I heard it.
Yeah, okay. Let me write that down. Okay.
Yeah, for the Savannah River one. That was really interesting. Because what Carol does is she's pretty dogged, you guys. Like, she'll call up people. I mean, she's a bit outrageous. You can hear me laughing. I enjoy her, so I think it's kind of funny. But she calls up people and has these interviews with them and asks them real questions. And it's a spontaneous interview that she tells them she's recording. They allow her to record it. So they're watching what they say, but she still gets them. I mean, she talks to them long enough that some of them actually, I think that's what happened here. You talked to him long enough, he kind of lost his guard, didn't he, near the end of it?
Who? The guy at Savannah Riverside?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was...
at first he had his guard up.
I was concerned about... They're bringing it, and Obama wanted to shut down the daggone plant that they were building, or are building down there, that's supposed to deal with all this radioactive stuff. So it's going to be sitting down there in barrels on concrete pads and or gravel pads under tarp. And, I just don't, it doesn't compute to me. They're bringing it in from France and Germany and another nation. I forget who that third nation was. Well, fourth nation, actually, because you're getting it from Japan, France, and Germany. And it's all going to Savannah, but then they're going to truck it to the WIPP down in Carlsbad, New Mexico. To put it down in the salt dome, it's already contaminated with radioactivity when it blew up 2-3 years ago. When they had, it didn't blow up, but they had to fire. It's a storage facility and a salt dome. And the original story on that, which I did, was about the salt dome ceiling falling on one of those daggone radioactive barrels that crimped the top of the barrel that caused the daggone thing to start leaking. Then they end up having the second story talking about the daggone the machine or the truck, whatever, that moves these barrels, that it caught on fire. Then they move on to the cat litter versus organic cat litter versus regular cat litter,
so Carol,
and all this crap.
I'm going to interrupt you. We have 1 minute left. Would you put links to all these videos if I give you the link to the show right afterwards? I'd like to have people be able to see this stuff. So
sure.
This is Carol from Weeping Willow 2, WHEEPING Willow 2. Many of you know her, and as you can tell, she's quite a character. She and I kind of get along. We don't agree on everything, but I do appreciate her interview. We have a conversation quite often about a lot of things. Thank you for joining our show today. It's been
thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, it's been really good. It's been really good. When Carol and I were talking earlier, I said, you know what, you can call any time. And to the people of St. Louis, if you're listening, please do contact me. I would love to interview you. I think it's important to keep putting the pressure on. You understand how grave the situation is more than anyone else. I want to thank our listeners. Please put your courage feet on. Take action. Call your representatives. Poke them in the eye. Not physically.
Yes, and I will link a thing about all the senators' phone numbers.
Awesome. Thanks, Carol.
Okay.